You're listening to Puma Podcast.
I'm Bella Perez Rubio, Puma Podcast, and in this episode of Deka Deka News.
As a young woman from Gaza, the local job market can be a little bit challenging for us after our graduation. So choosing to work as freelancers is the only hope for us. It provides us with the economic empowerment as well as financial independence.
A new report released by the World Bank details the promise and peril of online gig work, jobs that now account for about 12% of the global workforce. The voice you heard earlier was Huda Matrabie. She lives in Gaza, a perpetual conflict zone whose residents suffer constant destruction. She graduated from an English university and has been working freelance as a content marketing specialist for 5 years now. She's an online gig worker, which means her tasks are performed and delivered online.
Many young women like me go toward freelancing because there are many advantages or many benefits we can gain from. The first one, it provides us with the flexibility we need, as we can choose our own clients, we can choose our own hours, we can also balance between personal and professional life really without any difficulty.
So, Huda, having a good internet connection and electricity is so important for your online work.
That's broadcast journalist Shakuntala Santaran. She moderated this event for the World Bank.
But in Gaza, I believe you only get about 7 hours of electricity a day. How do you deal with this?
Right now, there is no electricity, but as freelancers, we have alternatives. We have tools to let the internet connections stable, like UPS and some batteries. Regarding the electricity, we can go for hubs. Hubs is like a workspace for many young freelancers. We can pay additional fees to rent an office or rent a whole room if we are a team. So we are stronger than all of our circumstances, actually. We deliver value, we deliver quality for our clients.
Huda is a clear example of all the ways online gig work has helped those who aren't in the position to hold traditional 9-to-5 jobs. But that's not all the report found.
Over the past decade, technology has fundamentally shifted traditional work patterns. It has brought economic opportunity and jobs to millions of people simply with access to broadband and a digital device. While developed countries dominate the demand for gig workers, demand from developing countries is rising at a much faster rate. A flexible workforce benefits businesses, especially small firms and startups, to remain competitive and agile in a dynamic market. This helps firms grow and create more jobs.
Again, online gig workers now make up 12% of the global workforce.
The online gig economy can play an important role in countries that are struggling with high levels of youth unemployment or underemployment. Young people are attracted to gig work to earn income, learn new skills, or have the flexibility to combine gig work with school or another job. And because online gig work provides flexibility in time and location, it can support increased participation for women, young people, and others in the labor market. In fact, in most regions, women are participating in the online gig economy to a greater extent than they are participating in the general labor market. Online gig work can also help extend work opportunities in smaller towns and villages beyond large capital cities. In fact, 6 in 10 online gig workers live in smaller cities.
But gig work also comes with risks.
In low-income countries, most people work outside the purview of labor regulations without access to social insurance and benefits. And for many gig workers, especially young people, there is often an unclear career pathway. A considerable wage gap also still exists. For example, on a major gig platform in Latin America, a female online gig worker's wage is only 68% that of her male counterparts.
The World Bank's report recommends ways for countries to make the most of the opportunities while mitigating the risks presented by online gig work. It also adds that this responsibility falls on both governments and the private sector.
Digital platforms can help increase the visibility of informal workers. This can also support government efforts to expand social protection coverage for all. Some private companies are developing solutions to facilitate tax planning, savings, and financial access for gig workers. To support equitable, affordable broadband access, especially for disadvantaged groups like youth, women, and people in rural and hard-to-reach areas, countries can also prioritize investments to improve access to digital infrastructure, devices, and payment options. Countries can enhance social protection coverage of gig workers, partner with platforms, and experiment with new social insurance models and more modern, digitally enabled forms of collective bargaining. And governments can invest in strengthening their own capacity to collect data and monitor labor market trends in real time. With these and other initiatives, developing countries can leverage this growing part of the labor market to create more opportunities, expand economic inclusivity, and increase prosperity for their people.
But what does it actually look like for governments and the private sector to implement these recommendations? We get to that after a quick break. In its latest jobs report, the World Bank found that more than 60% of young Filipinos aged 15 to 24 continue to be left out of the labor market. Its policy recommendation was to create more online and green jobs. While we have plenty of catching up to do, our neighboring countries are already seeing results. Malaysia, for example, started its e-Rezeki program in 2015 to provide online gig work for the marginalized. Here's Mahathir Aziz, CEO of the Malaysia Digital Economy Corporation, a government agency established in the 90s to lead the country's digital economy.
So the word e-Rezeki is loosely translated as e-income. I think apparent in the beginning was to provide access, to provide the kind of skill set and also literacy for the citizens of Malaysia to be able to use digital technologies and using many of the tools that are available online. So what best way to actually encourage them to go that way better than opening up ways for them to actually gain extra income. We targeted the low income group that are looking for new things to do and at the same time trying to upskill and reskill themselves to be digitally literate in many ways.
In short, online gig work has been a force for good in Malaysia.
So the kind of work that we started out back in 2015 was very much on data entry, some fact checking, translation, and these are all being done online and mostly the jobs are coming from within the borders of Malaysia. And more than 50% of the participants or the gig workers that participate in online gig work are actually women. So it creates a new branch of equity and equality in participation in the new digital economy. It creates opportunities for the low income, and we continue to actually expand this even more.
But there is one glaring risk for online gig workers: the lack of social protection. Let's go back to Huda, the content marketing specialist from Gaza.
No, there is no security. There is no health insurance. No, there is no insurance for us as freelancers.
And here's Shakuntala on how the problem can be addressed.
There are governments that are working with digital platforms like Wakana to extend social insurance to informal and self-employed workers. Brazil, India, Rwanda, and Malaysia are among the governments working to extend social insurance to informal workers. Mahathir, what is the Malaysian government doing to help gig workers on this front to get some social protection?
The beauty of the experience in Malaysia was that I think the industry and the country itself got disrupted quite early by the gig economy. We started out with what used to be called MyTaxi and eventually became Grab. Today, throughout and within the area of e-hailing and mobility and taxi and the likes. So social protection became one of the issue, licensing of the drivers and also the support for the actual gig workers to own the vehicles themselves to be able to perform the gig work became something that is needed almost immediately as we embark towards this. The government took notice of that very early, and we have worked with a lot of platform players.
Here's the solution the Malaysian government came up with.
We have today validated more than 120 online platforms to work with the government side by side to look at other issues. Besides the reskilling and upskilling, this is about social protection and also career pathing and growth for the particular gig workers. They might stay within a period of 3 to 4 months working as a driver or as a delivery workers. From that point on, they need to be able to educate themselves and move up into possibly formal employment. So we provide those kind of support through the government programs in terms of training, the reskilling and upskilling programs. And on top of all this, I think the private sector and the private platforms are also investing in their own workers themselves to upskill themselves.
And that was today's episode of Teka Teka News. Again, I'm Bella Perez Rubio. This episode was edited by Freddy Blanco. Our executive producer is Jill Caro, and our senior news editor is Veronica Uy. Don't forget to follow Teka Teka News on your favorite podcast app or listen to us for free on YouTube. And if you're watching this on YouTube and you like this episode, please take the time to click the like button and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for listening.